Discover Aksum, oldest continuous inhabited city in Africa. Hello explorers, welcome to another informative video presented to you by the Explorer, and thanks for watching. In this video, we shall look at the oldest continuous inhabited city in Africa, Aksum. The Kingdom of Aksum, also known as the Kingdom of Aksum or the Aksumite Empire, was an ancient kingdom centered in northern Ethiopia, in the Tigray region, and is what is now known Eritrea. Aksumite rulers styled themselves as King of Kings, King of Aksum, Himia, Radian, Saba, Salen, Tiamo, Beja, and Kush. They expanded the kingdom to great trading and political strength, making it one of the four strongest in the world, at the time ruled by the Aksumites. Just as the rise was rapid, so was the fall of this massive and powerful kingdom. To understand how one kingdom could have experienced such exponential growth and fall, its history will be a revealing factor. Hence, we will discover this ancient city in retrospect with its historic background to determine the survival tactics that has enabled it to still save a piece of itself today. If you're new here, welcome. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our videos. History of Aksum. The Kingdom of Aksum was a trading empire centered in Eritrea and northern Ethiopia, which existed approximately 100 to 940 AD. Growing from the Iron Age Proto-Aksumite period of 4th century BC to achieve prominence by the 1st century AD. According to the Book of Aksum, Aksum's first capital, Mazabar, was built by Ethiopis, son of Kush. The capital, which used the name Ethiopia as early as the 4th century, was later moved to Aksum in northern Ethiopia. Even though no longer so, the Empire of Aksum at times extended across most of present-day Eritrea, northern Ethiopia, western Yemen, southern Saudi Arabia, and parts of eastern Sudan. The capital city of the empire was Aksum, now in northern Ethiopia. Today, a smaller community, the city of Aksum was once a bustling metropolis, cultural and economic center. Two hills and two streams lie on the east and west expanses of the sky, perhaps providing the initial impetus for settling this area. Along the hills and plain outside the city, the Aksumites had cemeteries with elaborate gravestones called stelae or obelisks. Other important cities included Yeha, Hamoti, Melazo, Matara, Adols, and Kohaito, the last three of which are now in Eritrea. By the reign of Endubis in the late 3rd century, it had begun minting its own currency and was named by Mani as one of the four great powers of its time, along with the Sasanian Empire, Roman Empire, and Three Kingdoms, China. The Aksumites adopted Christianity as its state religion in 325 or 328 AD under King Ezana, and Aksum was the first state ever to use the image of the cross on its coins. King Kaleb. Around 520, King Kaleb sent an expedition to Yemen against the Jewish Himyarite King Du-Noas, who was persecuting the Christian community there. For nearly half a century, South Arabia would become an Ethiopian protectorate under Abraha and his son Masruk. Du-Noas was disposed and killed, and Kaleb appointed the Christian Himyarite Esimaphels as his viceroy. However, around 525, this viceroy was disposed by the Aksumite general Abraha with support of Ethiopians who had settled in Yemen and withheld tribute to Kaleb. When Kaleb sent another expedition against Abraha, this force defected, killing their commander and joining Abraha. Another expedition sent against them was defeated, leaving Yemen under Abraha's rule, although payment of a tribute resumed, where he continued to promote the Christian faith until his death. After Abraha's death, his son Masruk Abraha continued the Aksumite viceroyalty in Yemen, resuming payment of tribute to Aksum. However, his half-brother Mad Karib revolted. After being denied by Justinian, Mad Karib sought help from Khosrow I, the Sassanid Persian emperor, thus triggering the Aksumite-Persian Wars. Khosrow sent a small fleet and army under Commander Vares to depose the current king of Yemen. The war culminated with the siege of Sana'a, capital of Aksumite Yemen. After its fall in 570 and Masruk's death, Mad Karib's son Saif was put on the throne. In 575, the war resumed again after Saif was killed by Aksumites. The Persian general Vares led another army of 8,000, ending Aksum rule in Yemen and becoming hereditary governor of Yemen. According to Monroe Hay, these wars may have been Aksum's swan song as a great power, with an overall weakening of Aksumite authority and over-expenditure in money and manpower. Decline of Aksum. After the second golden age in the early 6th century, the empire began to decline in the mid-6th century. eventually ceasing its production of coins in the early 7th century. Around the same time, the Aksumite population was forced to go farther inland to the highlands of protection, abandoning Aksum as the capital. Arab writers of the time continued to describe Ethiopia as an extensive and powerful state, though they had lost control of most of the coast and their tributaries. While land was lost in the north, it was gained in the south, and though Ethiopia was no longer an economic power, it still attracted Arab merchants. The capital was moved to a new location, currently unknown, though it may have been called Kubar or Jamil. The fall of these once powerful kingdoms is a mystery to many, but several theories have been put forth as reasons for its fall. Local history holds that around 960, a Jewish queen named Yodit or Kudit defeated the empire and burned its churches and literature. Another possibility is that the Aksumite power was ended by a southern pagan queen named Bani al-Hamiwa, possibly of the tribe al-Damuta or Damoti. It is clear from contemporary sources that a female usurped did indeed rule the country at this time. At the time of her reign, it ended sometime before 1003. After a short dark age, the Aksumite Empire, succeeded by the Agho-Zagwe dynasty in the 11th or 12th century, although limited in size and scope. However, Yekono Amlak, who killed the last Yagwe king and founded the modern Solomic dynasty around 1270, traced his ancestry and his right to rule from the last emperor of Aksum, Dil Naud. It should be mentioned that the end of the Aksumite Empire didn't mean the end of Aksumite culture and traditions. For example, the architecture of the Zagwe dynasty at Lalibela and Yemrenhara Kretos Church shows the heavy Aksumite influence. Foreign relations, trade and economy. Of the things that made the Aksum kingdom famous and powerful, trade was one of them, as it traded peculiar goods, forming strong bonds with many countries around it and beyond. Aksum was deeply involved in the trade network between India and the Mediterranean, exporting ivory, tortoise shell, gold and emeralds, and importing silk and spices. Aksum's access to both the Red Sea and the Upper Nile enabled its strong navy to profit in trade between various African, Arabian, and Indian states. Given how fertile the land was then, their main trading products were agricultural, principally grain, such as wheat and barley, and animals like cattle, sheep, and camels. Wild animals were also hunted for things such as ivory and rhinoceros horns. The empire was also rich with gold, iron, and salt deposits, which were valuable to trade. Several trading routes through Egypt, Kush, and others gave Aksum more trade leverage as well as political stamina, which enabled them to capture Kush, a much older rival trading area. During the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD, the kingdom of Aksum continued to expand their control of the southern Red Sea, becoming the principal supplier of African goods to the Roman Empire. Architecture. Aksum had a unique take on architecture. In general, elite Aksumite buildings such as palaces were constructed atop podia built of loose stones held together with mud mortar, which are often all that survive of Aksumite ruins. Above the podia, walls were generally built with an alternating layer of loose stones and horizontal wooden beams, with smaller round wooden beams set in the stonework often projecting out of the walls on the exterior, and sometimes the interior, which helped strengthen the walls. Worked granite was used for architectural features including columns, bases, capitals, doors, windows, paving, waterspouts, and so on, as well as enormous flights of stairs that often flanked the walls of palace pavilions on several sides. Doors and windows were usually framed by stone or wooden cross members, linked at the corners by square monkey heads, though simple lintels were also used. Palaces usually consisted of a central pavilion surrounded by subsidiary structures pierced by doors and gates that provided some privacy. There are also some clay models of houses which survived to give us an idea of what smaller dwellings were like. The stelae are perhaps the most identifiable part of the Aksumite architectural legacy. These stone towers serve to mark graves and represent a magnificent multi-storied palace. They are decorated with false doors and windows in typical Aksumite design. The stone, which sometimes measured 33 meters high, were often engraved with a pattern of emblem denoting the king's or the noble's rank. The Empire of Aksum, despite its fall, is notable for a number of achievements, such as its own alphabet, the Giz script, which was eventually modified to include vowels, becoming an abugida. Beside the history, culture, and life of ancient Aksum, something that has stood to date is its architecture, which is extremely unique to them and the dice of reference to this once powerful kingdom in Africa. There you have it, explorers. That was the oldest inhabited city in Africa, Aksum. Thanks for watching this video. If you did enjoy this video, do want to give it a thumbs up and do not forget to subscribe and share with your friends.